Hello, hello, everyone. This is Power in Numbers. Today is November, the 27th? It's Wednesday, November 27th. If you are watching this or if you're watching it on replay, hello and happy Thanksgiving to those in the US who celebrate. I will warn you, my kids are home, my dogs are around. It is a total madhouse here. So if you hear anything, those of you who are parents get it. I had a live earlier today that my daughter decided to walk in on, so I would not be surprised if we get a special guest at some point. So I hope everybody is doing well. I'm going to come over to the comments. Hi, guys. Say hi when you're here. Tell me where you're tuning in from. This is my monthly live show that I do on both YouTube and on my Facebook page. And the reason that I started doing this show a couple months ago is number one, because I missed connecting with y'all live. For 2 years, I did regular lives. I don't do that as much anymore. I now make recorded content for YouTube, which you can go check out on my channel. But I miss being able to interact and talk to you. Danielle from my team is here in the chat as well to help you out. And this is also a great way to talk about more current news and things going on. So when I make content for YouTube, it's usually stuff that I expect to have a longer term life, but doing lives allows me to talk about things that are really topical. So every single month, if you do nothing else, definitely tune into these live shows so you can hear about what's going on and how new laws, things like that are going to affect business owners. You also can submit any questions that you have. So during this live, I'm going to talk about news, to-dos, and cues. And so when I get to the cues section, there is a way to submit your questions for the lives that I do so that you can potentially get picked. So I see Shannon here, a misplaced Texan in Colorado. I love it. Texan always, I'm guessing. I've heard that Texans stay Texans no matter where they are. Okay, so today I have a few things I want to talk about. First of all, I gotta acknowledge, see, I always point with the wrong finger. My sponsor today is Relay. Relay is the business banking platform that I use and that I love. If y'all were around this morning, I did a tutorial with Relay. So Deanna from Relay came and did a full tutorial live on this channel. And I'm going to have Danielle will link to get to that. So you can watch that next if you're interested in a new business banking platform. Even if you're not really interested, but are curious about it, because you've heard a lot about Relay and I talk about it a lot, it's more than just business banking. The functionality it has is so amazing for managing cash flow and doing all the things you need to do. So definitely go check that out. Danielle has shared that here on YouTube and also over on Facebook. So check out that tutorial. I think it is going to show you, oh, cool, Shannon's been using it and loves it. I love it. And if you needed another reason, so one of the main reasons I love Relay, just FYI, is because you can put your money into different buckets, essentially, and you can have actual separate bank accounts for different parts of your business. If you want to save for taxes, you can set up a tax account with a click of a button. It has a real, routing number and everything. And you can also set up a business savings account that gets interest, and it's so easy to manage, but there's so much more than that. And that's why I want you guys to look at the tutorial, because I absolutely love it. And I wish that it existed when I started my business years ago. But if you open an account today, for those of you who are unaware, okay, today we are in the middle of the 12 days of giving. What is the 12 days of giving? Well, the 12 days of giving is where we have a special deal rolling out to you every single day. Okay, so that could be a deal on our digital products to help you manage your finances, our spreadsheets, our toolkits, things like that. Or it can also be a deal on something that one of our partners offers. And so we have partnered with the affiliates that we typically work with that we really like and that we want to put in front of y'all to negotiate some better deals than we're normally able to give, but it's just for a very limited time. So today, our day number 7 deal, which expires today, if you're watching this again, it's the 27th of November, it expires tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so it's 10 p.m. Eastern for those of you on the East Coast, 7 p.m. Pacific. But the deal is the best deal that I've ever seen Relay offer, and that's $150 for opening a Relay account. By the way, it costs you $0 to open a Relay account. So that means you get $150 without having to spend anything. And this is a great time to be thinking about switching your business banking because we're walking into the new year. Again, you can use both accounts for a period of time, but it's a great time to transition to a new business banking platform. So go check out the tutorial. And then if you want this deal, again, this expires tonight, right? jamietrull.com/12 days, $150. All you have to do is fund your new Relay account with $100 by January 15th. So I wanted to get that in here because that's a really timely thing. So if you're thinking about it, go make sure to sign up for this account. If you have questions, support@balancedcfo.com and we can try to help you. Okay. So that's all the fun stuff about the 12 days. Also, make sure if you're on that 12 days page, which you can go to here, we have a new deal coming out every day. Again, we're in day 7 right now. So we're halfway through. So you still can, join for the rest of the time. And I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, the best is yet to come. So sign up for those email alerts so that you do not miss our best deals. These are the best deals we give all year long, and we only do them for 12 hours each. Okay. So that is why you want to pay attention and keep coming back to check out what our deals are, because you never know. We have some new fun ones this year. So very excited about that. Okay. So let's jump into the first segment of our Power in Numbers live show, and that is news. So this is my favorite part because I get to talk about the things going on right now that affect you as a business owner. So that could be new rules, new regulations, things like that you want to be aware of. And number one on this list, y'all, I've been talking about it for a while, but a lot of people still don't know about it, is the BOI form that you need to fill out for FinCEN, okay? Now, what is this? It's the beneficial ownership information. You might have heard other people talking about this. It is a form that goes to FinCEN, which is the Financial something Crimes Enforcement. Can't remember the full acronym. I had never heard of it before this, but essentially it is all about preventing things like money laundering. Sometimes people use shell companies and all this to do all kinds of things. So they want to understand who are the beneficial owners, not just the actual owners who own a percentage, but who benefits from these companies, right? Who are the main decision makers in the company that need to essentially be tied to this. So I made a video a while ago. You can go check this out if you're wondering if this applies to you. If you are an LLC though, an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp, okay, more than likely this applies to you. Now, if you are just a sole proprietor, you haven't had to register, then it might not, but definitely go check out that video where I go into more detail about who it applies to. Interestingly, I heard recently that I think there's about 32 million-ish companies that are supposed to essentially comply with this. So that's the estimate for how many companies they need to file this form. And as of about 2 weeks ago, only 6.5 million of those people did. So it's a small fraction. They're still the majority of business owners have not filed this form. Why it matters is because theoretically, we'll see what happens in actuality, but theoretically, there are fines of up to $500 per day, up to a max of $10,000 if you don't file this form by the due date, which is January 1st. Okay. So I actually want to show you the BOI form. Let me know in the comments if you have filed yours or not, if you've heard of this, if you know what I'm talking about. Here is the actual place you'll go. Now, yes, can you pay an accountant or a lawyer to do this? Yes. Should you? I'll show you what it looks like so you can get a vibe for it. Shannon says she has. Let me know how it goes. Honestly, in most cases, it's fairly straightforward and you can do it in 5 to 10 minutes. So I would not necessarily pay somebody to do this because they're going to charge you for the additional legal risk involved too, right? So you want to be sure. So we've got some people saying it was easy. It's the same thing. You can also, similar to, I always talk to people who are asking, should I pay someone to get an EIN for me? And I'm always like, no, it's like 5 minutes. Go watch my video and do it yourself. I am a really big fan. Some of these, it's just very simple and quick. You don't have to pay somebody to do this. I'm sure there are plenty of, people and companies out there that will take your money if you want to give it to them. But if you don't, then watch this tutorial. So I'm going to pull up real quick the actual form. So here's where you're going to go to fill out this form by January 1st. Okay. All right. And again, there's a video you can watch that if you're not sure if this applies to you and you want to understand the rules more, go watch this video that I made. But I'm going to go to this specific link really quickly. I'm going to present my screen so you can see it, because I think sometimes it's just easier to see what we're talking about. Okay. So hopefully y'all can see this, but this is where you're going to go. And all you're going to do is hit file. Okay. So you're going to go to this file a report, and you're going to see this easy peasy. You're going to go to this one right here, get started. And you can either do a PDF, which I don't know why you would, or you can file online. I'm going to go with file online because that's normal. So this is interesting. You know, this is just your warning that they're watching everything you're doing. Cool, cool. We're not going to talk about all of that. I know people have feelings about this from the standpoint of, you know, government watching them, things like that. Now you'll see that most of this information is stuff you already provide to your state, likely when you're filing your LLC annual reports and things like that. So I think most of the concerns are overblown. Again, as long as you're not doing any money laundering, it's really not like crazy information they're asking you for. I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit so you can see it a little more. Okay. So you can see when I go through here, and it'll let me click through without actually filling this out, which is good because y'all don't need to see my information. But basically you're going to say, what is this? Usually it's going to be initial report if you've not filed this before. You know, fill in the date for you, all your privacy stuff, make sure to read it all. It's good to read, right? Typically these are probably going to be no, but you can read the need help if you think so. You usually don't have to check those. And you're going to go in and just put your information in, right? What's the legal name? And check your paperwork if you're not sure of the business, or the DBA if you have one, right? Tax ID type. This is just EIN or social security number, right? Pick which one you are. Most likely if you're an LLC, you probably have an EIN. And then you're going to put your EIN number in unless you chose social security, and then you're going to put your social security, country, right? Really, I mean, easy peasy stuff to answer. And then address, current US address. This should be your company address. So check where you're registered, and it should be a physical address that you're putting in. And then we're going to go to next. Now, here is where people kind of can sometimes get confused on what it means to be an existing reporting company. This just means you are a company that existed before January 1st of 2024. So if you're a new company, you have 90 days from forming your company, forming your LLC to be able to fill out this report. If you were existing before January 1st of 2024, then you have until January 1st of 2025. So that's what's asking you. So typically, if you're a business that has existed for a while, you're going to click this, and that just means that you're not going to have to fill out all of these extra things, which is great. So that'll change essentially what questions you have to answer. Again, legal name, date of birth, all that fun stuff, right? Addresses, you know, it's just a lot of information. So ID type. Now, again, you won't have to fill this out. I believe you can skip those. I think it tells you can skip those if you are an existing reporting company. So check this box. Don't check it if it was created after. Reporting companies that check this box are not required to report any company. Applicants proceed to part 3. Okay, so you don't have to do anything in here in part 2 if you existed before January 1st of 2024. Yay. So let's come over to part 3, beneficial owner information. Okay, this is where it can get trickier. It's about figuring out who are the beneficial owners, not just the people who own a percentage. You probably know if you're a 100% owner, easy peasy, you're obviously a beneficial owner. But if you own more than 25% of the company, that's a beneficial owner. But you can have beneficial owners who don't have actual ownership in the company. And that's where it can get interesting. So you can add one here. This is for, very specific circumstances with minor children. Exempt entity, let's see, check this box. If the beneficial owner, it holds its ownership interest in the reporting company exclusively through one or more exempt entities. Okay, so this is again a very specific thing. Typically, probably would not be checked. Okay, legal name and date of birth. Again, just lots of information. And this is now not necessarily just about you, but about any beneficial owners you're going to put in, and what their actual residential address is, not the business address, but where they live. And then you're going to have to put in your documentation. So this is where you would upload either your driver's license, your passport, something like that, right? And put that information in. And you can put an image in as well. Okay, so that's what you're going to do for each beneficial owner. Like I said, it could be people who own over 25%, right? That's an automatic beneficial owner. But let's say you have someone who is, who makes the decisions in the business, including all like the financial decisions, things like that. It could be a CEO, a CFO, a COO, even if they don't have that beneficial ownership percentage, they can still be a beneficial owner, if that makes sense. So you can look here too. It'll probably give you some places to look and see. But ultimately, that's going to be what would be considered a beneficial owner. So think about who is really in decision-making capacity, who's really benefiting from this company, not just as an employee, but there's someone who truly has that. Maybe they can hire or fire board of directors members, right? Like things like that. They can make unilateral decisions that don't have to necessarily go through layers of approval. So that's something to know. If you aren't sure, then there's other things on the FinCEN website that will help you. And then you're going to come into your submit and you're going to put in all your information. And here's the interesting thing, right? Read your certifications. This is where the legal gets you. So make sure, right? This is where they're going to tell you you're going to be in trouble if you lied on this willfully, like on purpose, right? You're going to be in trouble. There could be penalties, things like that. Make sure that this is correct. Again, we're not talking about accidental things, but willful, putting false information on here, not a good thing. You don't want to mess with it. Just don't do it. Meaning don't put information that is not correct and it's not correct on here. So that hopefully just shows you, again, it's a bunch of financial information, or not financial information, a bunch of personal information, which I know we don't always love to give, especially to the government. But let's be honest, we're already probably giving most of this information to our state governments anyway. I personally am just in the camp of do the thing. If you're really, really, really against it, okay, pay the $10,000. That's the max fine for not doing it. Roll the dice. Have fun with that. Remember, if you have multiple companies, you have to do it for each company. So that was something. I have one main company and I almost always forget about the other LLC that I have. And so even if it's not like really functioning, go in and do this, right? You don't want to get in trouble on the back end. It's a really pretty easy process. So go check that out. Like I said, the vast majority of business owners have not done this yet. If I were a betting woman, and I am, but I'm not going to bet on this. If I were a betting woman, I might bet that this ends up getting extended, but I don't think they're going to do it until the deadline hits because they want to get as many people in as they possibly can before they do it. The AICPA has requested an extension on this. There is a potential that even the courts end up overturning it entirely. So if you want to wait it out and you really only want to do it if you're going to have to, then you can. But then you run the risk of forgetting, right? So that's the problem is if you wait it out for too long, you run the risk of forgetting. So I don't know that I would count on, anything changing with this. It always could when it comes to government regulations. We just had an election. Who knows what the new administration is going to think? My feeling is they are probably more anti-regulation in general from the government. So we could see that having an effect, but who knows when. So I would just go ahead and do it right now. If you're a scammer, like maybe wait. Hopefully you're not a scammer watching this YouTube channel. But if you're a law-abiding citizen, I would just go ahead and get this done personally. Okay. So that's the BOI form. That's the big to-do. That's going to come up in the to-do section 2. Do it by December 31st. Try not to wait until December 31st because you might forget. You might have all that eggnog and completely forget. So we don't want that to happen. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the overtime laws. So has anybody heard, if you're on here, let me know if you've heard of the new overtime laws. So essentially back, I did a video on this a couple months ago. Danielle will link that in the chat down below so you can see it and go back and watch it. Now, know when you go back and watch it that it's been overturned, but it's still good to know that it existed. So they were increasing the threshold to be an exempt employee. Okay. So typically it's about $35,000. As long as you make above that and meet certain requirements, you are considered to be an exempt employee, meaning your employer doesn't have to pay you overtime, or you as the employer don't have to pay that employee overtime. Well, they were going to be increasing this. They increased it July 1st. There was an increase federally for that threshold to be considered an exempt employee. And then as of January 1st, there was going to be a really big jump. So it was going from 35,000 to about 56,000. So this could impact anyone who has employees in that zone. And, maybe you haven't been paying overtime because they're exempt employees based on what they do. Well, you were going to potentially have to start paying those employees overtime if they didn't make over that it was like $56,600-ish or so, right? So some employers were thinking, do I need to increase salaries so that I don't have to worry about this? Do I need to put in new systems to track overtime for employees that I typically haven't had to, right? And it could have been a costly thing. Here's the video that I did on this. So this week, well, I think it was the 15th of November, the law was struck down in the courts. The court said it was unconstitutional and that the Department of Labor could not do this increase to the exempt rules. Okay. So what does that mean? Is it potentially going to come back? Is it going to be appeals? What's going to happen? I would guess, again, going back to the fact that we are switching administrations, we are going to an administration that is more anti-government regulation. My guess is this is dead, right? For now. Now, you still want to pay attention to your states because states can still regulate this stuff. And there are a couple of states that already have much higher limits than the federal government. So, you want to pay attention to what's going on in your state because even if the federal government can't mandate this, it could, your state could mandate an increase in this overtime, threshold. Okay. So that's something to check out, especially if you live in a more democratically controlled state that tends to be more worker friendly. They're more likely to have regulations like that. You probably already know this if you're an employer in any of those places. If you're in a more red leaning district, they probably have less regulations and things that you need to worry about from this regard. So that's just something to know. That's not my opinion. That's just how it works out. So that's just something to pay attention to with your states. But this overtime law is currently dead. And I don't really see it going anywhere else, but make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I'll let you know if it comes back, if it gets revived at all. And if any of you were wondering, like, okay, how do they determine if it's unconstitutional or not? What led to that decision? I want to talk about this just because I think it's important and not a lot of business owners really recognize this and they don't necessarily know how it will impact them. But this year, I know there were a lot of big court cases that got overturned recently that have dominated the news cycle, and rightfully so. However, there was one that a lot of people still don't really understand. So there was a court case called Loper-Bright this year, and it related to the Chevron doctrine. So we're going to get a little legal. I'm going to show you a little bit of my legal nerd. Like, I am not not a lawyer, but like I have a little bit of legal nerd in me. So this stuff is really interesting. But the Chevron doctrine was essentially created years and years ago. This was a long, long time ago via a court case where essentially it gave the departments within the federal government a lot of agency to create and to interpret the law, right? So wherever a law passed by Congress was maybe a little bit, like vague, the agencies themselves could fill in the gaps. So that means the IRS, the Department of Labor, the EPA, the Department of Education, right? All of those departments, every agency within the government would then be able to say, okay, here's the law, here's how we interpret it. And they had a lot of agency to be able to make regulations. So one of the things cited in the overturning of this compensation threshold is the fact that the Chevron doctrine was overturned, meaning now the courts get to say whether or not, like they get more say in whether the law actually is being followed by these agencies, right? They're interpreting it versus giving that deference to the agencies to decide for themselves and to give it to the people who are the specialists in this. So if you're curious, again, anybody who's also a little bit of a law nerd, it's an interesting thing because there's kind of a couple different effects here. You could have various different feelings about this, probably depending on where you stand, what side of the aisle that you typically stand on. And here's kind of some, if you want to read more about this, we've posted an article about it. But what various different sides will say on this is you might have more Republican leading people saying this is a good thing. This is a good thing because it means it prevents agencies from being able to have government overreach and put these laws in place, right? That, okay, no Department of Labor, you can't increase the overtime threshold by $23,000 over 6 months, right? That's not going to work. You have to get Congress to actually pass something in order to be able to do that, right? On the flip side, you can imagine, right, on the more Democratic leading side, they're saying, well, wait a second, nothing's going to get done then if we're relying on Congress and the courts here and not the people who are the specialists in these things to make the rules, right? So that's kind of the conversation that happens around Chevron. And ultimately, it being overturned is probably going to mean less regulation in general, right? Because regulations can be now challenged a lot more. So even like IRS regulations, things like that, it presents a lot more opportunity for the courts to challenge pretty much any agency regulation that wasn't very specifically authorized by Congress. So that's just something to know as a business owner, depending on what, if you're in anything that is highly regulated, this will probably impact you, right? And you may not see it right away, but it'll happen over the next couple of years. So that's just something to know about the law and how that then ends up impacting what trickles down to what you need to do. So, however, again, that we're talking federal here, that doesn't mean the states can always still have their own regulations. So be always paying attention to what your state says and not just what the federal government says. Okay, so that was a long conversation about that, but I think it's a good one to have an awareness of as a business owner and how this could impact you. All right. Okay, so that was the new overtime law. So again, all right, so that was all the news that I wanted to talk about. We talked through the BOI form. Make sure to file that. We talked about how the overtime rules that got passed earlier, or not passed, that were set by the Department of Labor earlier this year were overturned by the courts. And now we're going to move on to our to-dos section. So this is where we talk about, okay, it's November 27th, Jamie. What should I be doing with my business, with my finances? What do you recommend? Well, first and foremost, go file that BOI form if you haven't already. If you're one of the, 20-something million business owners that has not done this, go take care of it. Just take care of it. It'll, then you don't have to worry about it and you can just feel good about yourself. Feel like you're very on top of things because there are going to be lots of business owners that don't know about this. So also share that information around. I'm seeing more and more people online posting about this. Feel free to share my video about it so people know. That is really, really important. The more you can share, that's how people are going to know. If they don't have a lawyer or an accountant to tell them about this, right? It's going to be the internet, the World Wide Web that tells them. And we don't want anybody, walking into fines and penalties that, they could have avoided. Okay. So the other thing you should be doing right now, right? Again, we're walking to the end of the year. You might be thinking about taxes right now. We need to be starting to get organized. Do that now rather than waiting until January 1st, right? If you haven't logged into QuickBooks, no judgment. If you haven't logged into QuickBooks since February, let's go ahead and do that. Let's eat some turkey and let's sit and do some, expense categorizations or whatever you're going to do, or go ahead and hire that bookkeeper now. Don't wait till January to hire that bookkeeper. Okay. It's going to be harder to find someone brand new. Go make your plan now, right? And make your plan for taxes. Who are you going to use? Are you going to use the same tax preparers last year, right? Are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to go try to find a new one? Now is the time. Now is before it gets super busy. They're going to be able to talk to you more. You're going to be able to kind of test out who's a good fit, right? Go now and figure that out. So again, there are lots of amazing tax preparers, lots of amazing bookkeepers out there. If you want a place to start, we do have a preferred vendor list of vendors that I've vetted personally. I don't do bookkeeping or taxes myself, so I partner with other people that do, and I refer business to them. So if you're curious about that, go check that out. They do work with people in all states, which makes it much, much easier. So no matter where you are, you will be able to work with one of our preferred vendors. So go check that out. But again, now is the best time. The good ones get booked up, y'all. It just happens. And you will feel better knowing that you have a plan for your taxes this year. Okay, what else? So those are the to-dos right now. Again, I talked about this last time, but making sure to sit down. If you haven't looked at your taxes to know what you might owe this year, especially if things have changed significantly from last year, now is a good time to sit down and do that estimate, either by yourself if you're comfortable or with an accountant who can make sure that you're prepared, making some of those decisions. There was one year that I was going to owe way more taxes than I thought. And I decided to open a retirement account before the end of the year. I opened a SEP account so that I could contribute a whole bunch of money into it, so that rather than, the government having to pay extra money to the government for those taxes, I could keep the money. Now I can't touch it for a while, but I'd rather keep it than give it. So I made a huge contribution at the very end of the year, and I learned my lesson. So now is the time to be looking at that stuff. Once that clock hits January 1st, right? Your options pretty much go to zero, right? They decline significantly. So make sure that you are looking at that over the next month or so. All right. And now, let's see. Everybody's quiet today. Say hi. I see y'all on here. I know you're here. I know we have people watching live and nobody's talking. Any comments, questions? I'm going to get into some Q&A. Note that you can submit questions for these Q&As. I typically take them ahead of time so that I can pull any resources, things like that might be helpful. But if you go to jamietrull.com/YouTube, then you're going to be able to submit questions. You have to make sure that you opt in to our email list, and then you can ask whatever questions you want for these lives. And honestly, we don't get a ton of questions. Like we did the first one we did, and then it really calmed down. So you have a good chance of your question being answered. And here is how to do that. Jamie. So this is how you do that on Facebook, jamietrull.com/newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, jamietrull.com/YouTube. Easy peasy. Hi, good morning. Good morning. I'm glad some people are saying here. Some people are they're hiding. That's fine. Okay. So let's go to our next section, which is going to be questions. So I've got a couple of questions I wanted to talk through. And one of them relates actually to estimated taxes. So a lot of people, when they watch my videos, that's when they'll submit a question on that specific video. It's a great way to use it. Here we go. Are you filing the BOI report for your clients? No, I don't have clients. So I have students, but I don't have clients. I don't work one-to-one anymore. And like I said, as I just showed you earlier, I probably wouldn't hire someone. Someone's going to charge you a minimum of $200-$300 to do what will take you 10 minutes. If your time is worth more than that, then go ahead and hire somebody. You're going to have to give them all that information though. This is what's funny. This is what's happening is that people are hiring people to do their BOI, and literally they're sending you like a spreadsheet to fill out all this information and give it to them because they don't know it. And then they're just putting it in the system. That's what they're doing, y'all. They're not doing anything crazy. So it's not like it really even saves you time to have somebody else do it. Okay. So I highly, highly recommend just doing it yourself personally. Anyway, that's just me. Okay, let's see. And so one of the questions that came up though was from, let's see. Okay, Suchan says, I'm going to put the question up. They had a question about a video that I did about filing estimated taxes. So that's something that you need to do quarterly, your estimated taxes. So he said, my wife and I both have W-2 jobs, but I also have a small business and I'm trying to make an estimated tax payment for my business. Great. Sole proprietorship LLC. If what I'm seeing in your video is correct, I need to enter my and my wife's SSN instead of my business EIN. Is that correct? And can I use my business credit card to make the payment? Yeah. So when you're making estimated tax payments, the key is you're a pass-through entity. So if you're a sole proprietorship, LLC, even an S Corp, you're a pass-through entity. That means your business doesn't pay taxes. You pay taxes as a human being, right? And so it's all kind of intermingled together. All the money that you make, right? It's hard to determine, like, here's how much, taxes I owe in my business. Because remember, taxes are kind of that graduated scale. So it adds all of the money you made together, and then it figures out where you fall. So it's hard to say, like, okay, what was the first, $15,000 that's 0%, right, of a tax rate? Well, what's the first $15,000 you make? Is it your business money? Is it your W-2 jobs? Like, impossible to tell. So you really don't pay business taxes, you pay personal taxes. So when you're doing that, that means you're putting in your social security number. And actually, to this point, it's whoever the primary filer is. So if you're not sure who's the primary filer on your taxes, go and take a look. Can you put in yours? Yes, but it could cause some delays if it doesn't automatically match. So that's been an issue before. So you would file it under whoever the primary tax filer is if you're married filing jointly, right? So yes, in this case, you would. It sounds like she is the primary filer, so you would use her social when you make those payments, and then you should be able to make sure that they all went through and check that. But that is what I would do. And here's a video that he references on paying estimated taxes. Danielle has gone ahead and for anybody that wants to see how to do that, or you have more questions about it, we talk about it all in that video. The other question is, can I use my business credit card to make the payment? Yes, I believe you can, but I think it's going to cost you more. So there's usually fees and things like that to pay with a credit card. So you're going to want to weigh that with the reason you want to pay with a credit card, whether it's points or whatever. Weigh those fees. I typically am like anti-paying credit card fees. So I typically will just pay cash because usually they're going to outweigh any potential point benefit that you might get. So if you don't want to pay those fees, then you can pay just via, bank transfer. So really pretty easy. Okay. All right. So that was the first question. And the second question I was going to talk about today was from Adrian. Hi, Adrian. And Adrian asks, I love this question. This is setting me up. This is a great setup question. Do you have any recommendations for like a business accounting 101 class? I'd actually love to understand the terms in videos and taxes. As a matter of fact, I swear I did not plant this question. She really asked this question, which is fabulous. I do. I created one, actually. So I have a 101 course. It's called Financial Fitness Basics, and it actually runs through all the things that you need. So it's going to talk about how to read financial statements, right? Like, what are they? How to read them? How do I, get all this together? It's going to talk about taxes, right? It's going to talk about how your financial statements work together. Like how does a P&L interact with a balance sheet? Why do I need both? It's going to talk about entity structures. What's the difference? When should I think about switching? So you're going to want to check that out. So you can check it out, jamietrull.com/basics. Oops, I think I put here. That's the better one. I misspelled basics. So jamietrull.com/basics, that's where you want to go. And I will give you a hint though. So you can go get it at full price right now. Watch the 12 days promos. Like I said, currently we're in day 7. So watch the 12 days promos that are going on over the next couple of days. There might be a potential to get this at a cheaper price. Just saying. So like I said, this 12 days of giving is our best prices of the year. It's okay if you missed it, go buy it. Still a great program, even at full price. But if you're here on live, I want to give you some exciting tips. So go check out jamietrull.com/12 days. Make sure you've signed up for email reminders, and definitely be paying attention circa, December 1st. We'll just say that. So, anywho, I hope everyone is doing well. That was all of Power in Numbers Live today. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Relay. I want to mention it again today for the 12 days of Christmas. Relay is the deal. you get $150 for opening up a free bank account. This is the best I have ever seen them offer. I did a full tutorial earlier you can check out that's on this YouTube channel. Go to jamietrull.com/12 days. That's where you're going to see these offers. It's going to be gone by 7 p.m. Pacific tonight, though. So do not wait. Go ahead, click over there, and go ahead and sign up. Again, you don't have to fund the account until January 15th, but you do need to sign up today for it to count in this promo. All right. Okay. Full tutorial is here if you want to see all the insides of Relay, all the cool stuff that it can do. Again, it's more than just a banking platform. It does all kinds of stuff to make your life easier. So go check that out. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I will see you next time.